Ladies and gentlemen, fasting is not about deprivation, it's about connection. It's about finding the strength within yourself to push away the distractions of the world and redirect your energy towards something divine, something greater than yourself. When you fast, you're making a declaration. You're telling the universe, I am ready to grow. I am ready to listen. I am ready to act. Fasting attracts God because it speaks the language of humility, discipline, and faith, qualities that resonate deeply with the divine. Fasting is a powerful declaration of faith, discipline, and humility that resonates deeply with God. It's a profound act of setting aside your physical desires to focus on the spiritual, a way of showing that your connection with God is more important than anything else. Faith is at the core of fasting. When you fast, you demonstrate trust in God's ability to sustain you, even when you deny yourself the essentials. You are saying, I believe you are enough for me, more than food, more than my comfort, more than my physical needs. That kind of faith is magnetic to God because it shows a willingness to place Him above all else in your life. Discipline is another crucial aspect of fasting. It takes immense strength to resist the natural desires of your body and maintain a spiritual focus. The act of fasting trains your mind and soul to prioritize long-term spiritual growth over temporary physical gratification. It's not just about skipping meals, it's about conquering the impulses that often control us. Discipline is a rare quality in a world driven by instant gratification. When you fast, you cultivate this discipline, which not only strengthens your spiritual resolve, but also reflects a readiness to receive God's blessings. He sees your effort, your commitment, and your ability to put aside your own will to embrace His. Humility is perhaps the most beautiful part of fasting. It reminds you of your dependence on God. When you experience hunger, you are reminded of how fragile you are and how much you rely on something greater than yourself. Fasting strips away pride, ego, and the illusion of control. It brings you to a place of vulnerability where you can truly feel God's presence and grace. In humility, you acknowledge that you are not self-sufficient, that you need His guidance, strength, and love. This act of surrender is incredibly moving to God because it creates a space where He can work more profoundly in your life. By declaring your faith, practicing discipline, and embracing humility through fasting, you align yourself with God's heart. This act resonates deeply with Him because it reflects the very qualities He values and seeks to nurture in us. Fasting becomes more than an action, it becomes a powerful connection point between you and the divine. Fasting is a practice that shifts your focus from physical needs to spiritual growth, creating a profound path for divine connection. In our everyday lives, the demands of the body, hunger, comfort, and desires often dominate our attention. These needs are natural, but they can also act as distractions from the deeper purpose of our existence. Fasting interrupts that cycle, forcing you to step back from the constant pull of physical cravings and refocus on what truly matters, the state of your soul and your relationship with God. When you fast, you temporarily set aside the demands of the body, reminding yourself that your existence is more than physical survival. It's a powerful statement that says, I am not ruled by my flesh. I am more than my appetites. I am a spiritual being on a journey of growth. This shift in perspective creates space in your life for reflection, prayer, and spiritual renewal. In the quiet moments of fasting, you can hear the whispers of God more clearly. With the distractions of daily life diminished, your heart becomes more attuned to His presence and guidance. Fasting also deepens your understanding of reliance on God. Hunger serves as a constant reminder of your fragility and dependence on Him. Each pang of hunger is an invitation to turn inward and upward, seeking sustenance not from the world but from the divine. This reliance fosters spiritual growth as you learn to lean on God for strength and clarity. It's in this space of vulnerability and dependence that true transformation begins. Moreover, fasting creates an intentional path for divine connection. It's not just about denying yourself food or comfort, it's about making room for God to enter and fill the spaces you've cleared. When you fast, you're saying, I choose you over everything else. I choose to make room for you in my life. This act of prioritizing God above your physical needs sends a powerful message of devotion and trust, drawing you closer to Him. The spiritual growth that comes from fasting is a process of shedding the distractions of the material world and embracing the eternal. It's an act of purification where you let go of what is temporary to focus on what is everlasting. In doing so, fasting becomes a sacred bridge between the physical and the spiritual, allowing you to walk closer to God and deepen your connection with Him. Fasting is a profound test of your character and faith. It challenges not only your physical endurance, but also your mental and spiritual strength. In a world driven by instant gratification and comfort, fasting requires you to make a conscious decision to endure discomfort and sacrifice, all for the sake of spiritual growth. It's a refining process that reveals the depth of your commitment to your faith, exposing both your weaknesses and your strengths. When you fast, you are forced to confront your desires and impulses. You experience the struggle between the body's natural cravings and the higher calling of your spirit. Every moment of hunger, every time you feel the urge to break your fast, tests your resolve. But with each moment of resistance, you are strengthening your ability to persevere, to focus on your spiritual objectives, and to reject distractions that would pull you away from God. In this way, fasting becomes a spiritual workout, building your endurance and your discipline. Fasting also reveals the strength of your trust in God's guidance. As you surrender to the process, you acknowledge that you are not in control of everything. You trust that God will sustain you in your weakness, guide you through your discomfort, and provide for you in ways you may not fully understand. It's a leap of faith, a decision to trust in His plan for you, even when the immediate circumstances are difficult. The discomfort you experience while fasting is not just physical, it becomes an opportunity to trust that God is at work within you, even in moments of struggle. Through fasting, you begin to see that spiritual strength is not about self-sufficiency or control. It's about surrendering to God's will and trusting in His power to sustain you. The more you fast, the more you experience how God provides in ways that go beyond the physical realm. You find that you are not just surviving, but thriving, not through your own strength, but through His. This realization deepens your faith and trust in His ability to guide you, even in the most challenging of times. As fasting refines you, it transforms your perspective on strength. You learn that true strength doesn't come from satisfying every desire or avoiding discomfort. It comes from enduring through challenges with a heart fully surrendered to God, trusting that He will guide you through every trial. This refining process through fasting molds you into a stronger, more faithful person, revealing not just your physical endurance, but your spiritual resilience and trust in God's provision. Fasting aligns you with gratitude in a way that nothing else can. When you intentionally withhold from the things your body craves, you create a space to reflect on the abundance that already exists in your life. Often we become so accustomed to having what we need when we need it that we forget to recognize how blessed we truly are. Fasting brings an awareness of the blessings that are often taken for granted: food, comfort, even the simple act of waking up every day. In those moments of hunger or discomfort, you begin to realize how much you've been given, and you're able to shift from a mindset of lack to one of deep appreciation. Gratitude is transformative because it changes your perspective. It shifts your focus from what you do not have to what you already possess. When you fast, you're not just abstaining from food or comforts, you're creating an environment where your heart is open to receiving more blessings, both big and small. Gratitude has a way of opening the door to divine favor, because when you acknowledge God's goodness and abundance in your life, it prepares you to receive even more of it. It's a reminder that all things come from Him, and when you recognize that, your heart becomes attuned to His will, His love, and His grace. Fasting also teaches you purpose. It serves as a reminder of what truly matters, cutting through the noise of daily distractions to help you focus on your ultimate purpose in life, living in accordance with God's will. When you remove distractions and embrace the discipline of fasting, you open yourself up to the deeper truths of your existence. You begin to understand that the pursuit of material things or fleeting pleasures pales in comparison to the purpose you are meant to fulfill in this life. Through fasting, you are aligning yourself with a higher calling and seeking to become more than just your physical self. You begin to reflect on how your actions, your choices, and your life align with God's plan for you. By aligning with gratitude, fasting opens your heart in ways you may not expect. It reveals blessings in abundance, draws your focus to a deeper purpose, and helps you see your life through the lens of God's grace. It is in this space of deep appreciation and purpose that your relationship with God deepens and His presence becomes more palpable in your life. Gratitude is the foundation of a life filled with blessings, and fasting is a powerful tool that clears the path for this profound transformation. Surrendering through fasting shows a profound trust in God's plan, unlocking a sense of freedom and clarity that is hard to find in the chaos of everyday life. When you choose to fast, you are not just giving up food or comfort, you are surrendering your will to something greater than yourself. In a world that constantly pushes us to assert control over everything, fasting becomes an act of radical surrender. It is a decision to step away from the illusion of self-sufficiency and acknowledge that ultimately God's plan for you is far greater than your own. This surrender is not a weakness, but a strength, one that aligns you with the divine order of life and opens doors to clarity and peace. Trusting in God's plan through fasting allows you to let go of the worry and anxiety that often accompany the need to control every aspect of your life. In surrendering, you acknowledge that you don't have to have all the answers, that you don't have to know every step of the journey. God already has it mapped out for you, and through fasting, you allow yourself to step into that trust. It's about saying, I believe that what God has for me is better than what I can imagine, and I am ready to walk in that faith. This trust brings a deep sense of peace because it removes the burden of trying to control everything and replaces it with the assurance that God's will is unfolding in perfect timing. The freedom that comes with surrendering through fasting is a liberation from the chains of worry and fear. When you fast, you strip away the distractions that often cloud your judgment and weigh you down with uncertainty. Hunger and discomfort serve as powerful reminders that you are not in control, but you are free to trust in God's provision. This freedom is not about doing whatever you want, but rather releasing the need to have everything your way. It's about submitting to a higher calling, one that brings peace, joy, and fulfillment that the world cannot offer. Fasting also unlocks clarity in a way that few things can. In the absence of distractions and desires, you can hear God's voice more clearly. When you surrender, you create space for His guidance to lead you, unencumbered by the noise of daily life. This clarity brings direction to your life, helping you make decisions that align with His plan rather than your own. Through fasting, you clear the fog, allowing the light of divine wisdom to shine through. You begin to see the path ahead more clearly, and the answers you've been searching for come into focus. Ultimately, fasting as an act of surrender is an invitation to trust God's plan fully. It's a powerful reminder that true freedom and clarity are found when we release the need to control and instead place our faith in His divine purpose for our lives. It is in surrendering that we unlock the fullness of peace, freedom, and clarity that God desires for us. Fasting is an act of love and devotion that draws God's presence closer and transforms lives in ways beyond comprehension. At its core, fasting is a deliberate choice to place God at the center of your life, demonstrating through your actions how much you value His presence. It is a loving response to God's constant faithfulness, a way to say, I love you enough to sacrifice for you. This act of devotion goes far beyond physical hunger. It is a spiritual hunger that seeks to be filled only by God. When you fast, you express a deep longing to be closer to Him, to experience His nearness in ways that words cannot fully describe. Through fasting, you create space for God to work in your life. In the absence of food or earthly comforts, you become more aware of the spiritual realm and open yourself up to God's presence. He responds to this act of devotion by drawing closer to you. The scriptures remind us that when we seek God with all our hearts, we will find Him. Fasting becomes a tool for this pursuit, allowing you to seek God with a purity of heart and an intense desire to draw nearer to Him. It's in those moments of quiet fasting that God often speaks the loudest, offering clarity, peace, and direction for your life. The act of fasting has the power to transform lives because it shifts the focus from earthly desires to spiritual growth. It has the potential to break the chains of attachment to worldly things, teaching you that your ultimate fulfillment comes not from possessions or temporary comforts, but from a relationship with God. As you sacrifice, you learn to rely on Him for strength, and this dependency deepens your connection with Him. The transformation that comes from fasting is not just about what you give up, but about what you gain: a deeper understanding of who God is, a stronger faith, and a renewed sense of purpose. When fasting becomes an act of love, it's not a burden but a privilege. Love is at the heart of the sacrifice, and it is that love that makes the experience meaningful. You are not fasting out of obligation, but because you desire to draw nearer to the one who loves you unconditionally. This devotion opens your heart to receive the fullness of God's grace and mercy, and as you grow closer to Him, your life is transformed. Your priorities shift, your perspective changes, and you begin to see the world through a lens of love and gratitude. The transformation is deep, personal, and lasting as fasting not only brings God's presence closer, but also renews your heart, mind, and spirit. In the end, fasting is a beautiful act of love and devotion that brings about profound change. It draws you nearer to God, fills you with His presence, and transforms your life in ways that can only be fully understood through the experience itself. Through fasting, you surrender to God's love and are forever changed by it. In conclusion, fasting is not simply an act of denial, it is a profound expression of faith, devotion, and trust in God's plan. Through fasting, we step away from the distractions of the world and create a space where God can speak to us, guiding our hearts and minds toward deeper spiritual growth. It is in this sacred practice that we align ourselves with gratitude, surrender our will, and open ourselves to the freedom, clarity, and transformation that come from seeking God above all else. As we fast, we draw closer to His presence, and in doing so, we experience the fullness of His love and purpose for our lives. Fasting teaches us that our true sustenance is not found in the physical, but in the divine. It is a reminder that God's plan for us is greater than anything we could ever imagine, and through fasting, we learn to trust in His provision, timing, and direction. The transformation that comes from fasting is not just external, it is internal, as it refines our hearts and minds, making us more attuned to His voice and His will. Ultimately, fasting is a powerful spiritual discipline that brings us closer to God, unlocking blessings, clarity, and strength that empower us to live with purpose. When we fast with the right heart, a heart full of love, devotion, and surrender, we experience a deeper connection to God and a transformation that reshapes our lives from the inside out. For fasting, we affirm that we are more than our physical needs and that true fulfillment and freedom are found in our relationship with the Creator.